Hey folks, so this is the first video in a 12-part series that I'm going to be running on this channel, which explores the idea of running your desktop through the web browser. Now, there's a huge number of reasons why you may want to consider this, but I'm going to be looking at the sort of the practical day-to-day hurdles that I might face, the benefits that I might garner out of this little experiment, I suppose you'd call it. Now, there are a few companies that offer a streaming-based desktop. There's Amazon Workspaces, which are quite well known in the corporate environment, but I'm going to be using a company called Shells.com, which offer you a subscription model-based virtual machine, which you can run through any browser, and you can interact with it as you would do with any desktop. Now, of course, there is some latency and delay, and it will depend on your connection, and all of those caveats definitely apply. Same thing with GeForce Now, same thing with Stadia, and of course, same thing with Amazon Workspaces. Now, because you're on a desktop, the latency is, shall we say, less of an issue than it is when playing video games, and it is there and it is noticeable. But again, depending on your internet connection, depends on how it will all pan out. Now, I will say up front that Shells.com have given me a year's free subscription to their Pro tier service, which allows me to do this. So definitely take that into account when it comes to assessing my credibility in the situation. And also, as part of this sort of partnership thing that we've got going on, there's going to be an affiliate link in the description of every video in this series. And in that affiliate link, you'll get 20% off, which is pretty decent saving, right? So I'm not necessarily just pushing that for me. I get 10% of that, by the way, but don't worry about what I get out of it. It's not going to be that much in the grand scheme of things. I'm doing this because I genuinely want to see this as an experiment, and the good folks at Shells were kind of keen to for me to do this, because it's going to hope like it's going to sort of give their service a bit of exposure as well, I'd imagine. So that's the idea. So I'm going to show you what I've got now. Now, this is my primary desktop as it is, but when I do like future video tutorials, chances are I'm going to sort of have a separate user for that, just because I don't want to end up doxing myself or something stupid like that. But I'm going to show you the basic setup, but this is just a basic Debian vanilla GNOME desktop. You can choose from Linux Mint, there's Manjaro, there's a few others. I think they're even trialing out in their list of beta operating systems, Tails, of all things. So that's kind of interesting. And of course, you can get Windows for an additional license fee. So this is what I got. This is a standard desktop. I've changed the wallpaper to for reasons, I guess. But anyway, yeah. So we've got activities here. And I've also turned off animations because of the latency issue. It just feels a bit more natural to not have animations, if that makes any sense. I've also tried a few desktops. MX Linux was another operating system that I could have chosen, and it does feel personally that XFCE based desktops seem to like be more intuitive under these circumstances, whereas something like GNOME, it feels like the latency shows a little bit on it. But like I say, this is on experiment, and you might come back to this series next month, and I might be on an entirely different distribution or an entirely different desktop environment. So we'll see how this goes. But I decided to go with Debian. I've got Debian generally, that's sort of my go-to distribution nowadays, largely because it has a strong adherence to the free software principles, as well as being incredibly well put together, well tested. The people who behind Debian are the best of the Linux community, in my personal opinion, and that shows through in their distribution. And it's no coincidence that Ubuntu is based on it, that so many distributions are based not necessarily just on Ubuntu, which again, of course, is based on Debian, but Debian in and of itself. There is a big following for MX Linux these days, for something that is reasonably lightweight but also functional and practical and good at handling modern packages, so all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I've got my my activities up here. I will go to, for example, something like files. We'll have a quick look at files, and then yeah, we've got InSync. We got okay, so yeah, what I've got here is two services running. I've got InSync and I've got SyncThing. InSync is a proprietary service that does actually cost money, but it does sync to Google Drive, Dropbox, and OneDrive. It is actually a pretty neat piece of software, but it isn't cheap. So, but I do recommend that, particularly to people who are like more casual or non-free software enthusiasts when it comes to setting up their Linux box. Most sort of like non-Linuxy, non-techie users will just want something that works, and they will, InSync will be their sort of choice. So you can get that InSync, INSYNCHQ.com. That's not a bad piece of software, and it is available and runs on, well, Debian, as you can see here, but most Linux distributions. SyncThing is a little bit, it's more of a peer-to-peer streaming thing. So if you've got several devices, it then allows you to have like consistent folders among, sorry, my phone is just vibrating off the hook, so I'll just throw that over there. Okay, so yes, without further ado, I will demonstrate. So as you can see here, it's a little bit sort of like, the latency is thing, but the reason I think this is going to be particularly useful to my use case is because I have to use many different computers, some of which do not run the operating system of my choice. So for example, if I'm put in front of a Mac to do some work, I can then just open up a browser, go into my desktop, and I'd have full access to a full desktop just there and then, right in front of me, as I have set it up. Now that's really appealing to me. I use SyncThing and InSync to make sure that the files that I use and manipulate and change and make and all that kind of stuff on my virtual machine operating system through the browser on Shells, I want to then sync those with other devices so that it is relatively seamless when it comes to making sure that your files are just like readily available. So that's pretty good too. But there's no reason why you couldn't fundamentally live your entire life inside of a Shell's virtual machine. They have great backup options as well. So you just you can just snapshot your entire computer. Shells will do that. They charge an extra premium for that, but again, like, it just makes backup just one less thing you have to worry about. And that's quite good. Again, those of you on my channel, you're going to have differing views on the cloud. The idea of an operating system as a service is probably going to be quite interesting to a lot of you. Some will agree, some will disagree with the prospect of it. But this, to me, is just an interesting avenue for free software to take, and one in which Linux has a supreme advantage, not having to worry about things like licenses. I think it costs like an extra £8 a month or £8 a year or something like that for the Microsoft license. I can't remember. There's a bit of a distinction between a month and a year, but you know what I mean. So I think I have the basics covered here, but yeah, it's a basic. This is just a standard Debian desktop thing. You've got your terminal, you've got your software store. We've got a couple of updates there as well. But as you can see, it's my internet connection is middling, but of course, when it comes to things like streaming, the speed of your internet connection is not the be-all and end-all. There is like an issue of latency there. So it can just depend on your geographical location as to whether or not your desktop ends up being super smooth or completely unusable, as I understand it. I've yet to use a connection where it's completely unusable, but I guess time will tell on that one. But yeah, like, it is just literally a Debian desktop. It's pretty fantastic. Okay, so honestly, I think that's all I've got to say right now. It comes with the standard affairs, but I'm going to maybe do a few more things, and there may be like interim videos as well that that I can, sort of show specific things done through this this medium, which is rather interesting. So yeah, please let me know your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. Let me know what sort of workflows you'd like me to sort of try out, or any sort of experiments you'd like me to run on it. There are a few that I have already tried out. The first is that games don't really run so well on this. It's not going to be build your own Stadia. It's not going to be build your own GeForce Now or anything like that. And that's simply just because the amount of money and technology that has gone into things like GeForce Now and Stadia have they have crushed that latency to within an inch of its life. Something which you don't need to do when it comes to like non-gaming applications, but also something which, well, I don't know the workings of the Shell company or the Shells company, but I'm going to guess that they're not quite as well funded as the likes of Nvidia or Google. But I don't know. That's just maybe me making assumptions. I don't know. But they're giving it a damn good effort, and I like to see, non-big tech companies actually try and make some gains here as well. Now, obviously, anyone that knows the business world will know that Amazon are making gains with their workspaces packages, and then doesn't look like they're making any kind of move into the domestic software yet. I can imagine a world in 20 years' time where, like, every operating system is, or almost every computer just streams their operating system. It just becomes the norm because it allows that massive centralized control. And I know some of you have just like tremored at that thought of the idea of, actually, we own the thinnest of thin clients, in the future, where it will just be a tablet, or it will be a very basic laptop, but it will just it will just be a window directly into the cloud. And then, all of the work that you've ever done will exist somewhere on some other machine. It doesn't, how that plans out in the grand, geopolitical workings of the progression of the internet, it will go the way that it goes, right? But at least with this particular setup, it gives the end user a great deal of control. I believe you can SSH into it. I believe there are ways that you can attach a static IP to your machine as well. And in fact, it even seems that you can actually use this as a server with a graphical UI, which is something that I actually kind of find quite appealing. I know that a lot of my system admin friends are like, no, the terminal's the best for this all the time. But it's like, just to run a gate server for Gemini or anything like that, like, I know it's a bit of overhead, but like, it does make it accessible to people who are a bit more visual, who are a bit more visually oriented, I guess. Not that I have a problem with server admin from the terminal. It is the way to do it. It is the industry standard. But I like the idea that if you could get something like this running, and then maybe 12-year-old Jimmy from school can actually get a little Minecraft server going or something like that, and if having the visual step by step helps, I'm all for that. So okay, so where are we? I haven't actually shown you much of the operating system because it really is just a like Debian GNOME, which, funnily enough, is a very generic type of GNOME with a reasonably standard set of applications installed. I can have a quick look at all the applications I've installed now. Man, LibreOffice. I am still surprised that there are desktop environments that are coming with Office tools. I've got Chromium Web if I need a second web browser. Got some games here. Calculator, InSync. So really it is the most basic of, oops. There we go. VLC media player, of course. I've got transmission there. Tweaks, interestingly enough, all comes pre-installed on Debian, which is nice. You can actually move this little like Shells tab, but the Shells tab is quite useful for things that like, settings regarding your streaming. We've got Nibbles, which is Snake, software update, sound recorder. Great. Maps. Wonderful. SyncThing web UI. Yeah. And what have I used? What's my frequency? So we've got Firefox ESR, we've got music, tweaks, archive manager. So yeah, all the usual stuff. Great. So that's it. I think that's about it from me today. Thank you very much for watching. And as I say, if you've got any ideas as to what you would like to see me do with this interesting piece of technology, please do let me know. But I'm going to be trying my best to use it as a daily driver, or at least part of my daily driver this year, just to see what the challenges, hurdles, and prospects are, really. Thank you for Shells for partnering up with me on this one. I'm going to be doing a video a month on the Shells desktop just to see, or the Shells desktop technology, just to see how it all goes down. And yeah, I invite you along for the ride. So that's about it for me today. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I've been Chris Ware, and you've been awesome. Toodaloo.